So you are officially live. She's live. What's supposed to happen?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Doreen Mokoena. I'm from the Domain Name Authority of South Africa, commonly known as ZADNA. I am designated as an intergovernance specialist. I'm a qualified practitioner, and I have various certifications in policing and police science and policy and regulations. So today I'm going to be taking you through security and policies and surrounding the internet space and the global internet ecosystem. So first of all, what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about policy and security. Basically, I chose these two subjects taking into consideration the recent cyber attack that we have been having and have been experiencing as a country. So I'll be taking you through the provisions of the GDPR, the POPI Act, and what it means actually to be online and how to protect yourself. So first of all, how do we then define internet governance? Basically, internet governance refers to the rules, standard procedures pertaining to the internet. So basically how you conduct yourself. It refers to the internet protocol, to the infrastructure. There are certain layers that surround internet governance, just like your first layer. So basically, there are 5 layers that that regulates the internet. So we have the first layer, which is the infrastructure standards. We have the jurisdiction and law. We have development of policies. We have the economy, which refers to the digital economy, and we have the social culture, which refers to your social engineering, privacy law, and so forth. So now, why do we actually need policy and governance within the internet space? Number one, we need that to actually regulate the information space, the information society. We also need that to help us with guidance in terms of online politics and democracy. Now we have other new actors within the space like your fake news and deep fakes. So we do need these regulations to actually help us and protect us pertaining to those factors. And we also need internet governance for issues like privacy and surveillance, for legal and ethical consideration. When I say ethical consideration, I'm talking in terms of your data being mined and being used for things that you're not aware of, especially where you didn't give consent. And I'm talking about the internet and digital divide. When I actually talk about digital divide, I'm actually referring to people who do not have access. I'm talking about digital inclusion. There are people who are in certain areas that do not have internet connection. They are excluded from the internet. There are people who do not have digital literacy. They are actually excluded from the internet. So internet government, policy development and deployments makes provisions for people to be included and bridge the digital divide. So as I said at the beginning of this presentation, that today I'll be talking about policy and security, I decided to choose 2 primitive factors and players, which is the GDPR and the POPI Act. So the GDPR is actually the General Data Protection Regulation, which came into effect last year, 2018, on the 25th of May, 2018. So the GDPR makes provisions for how your information is processed, how it's kept, and how you can actually ask for your information to be deleted from the cyberspace. Now we have 2 provisions, as I've mentioned. We have the POPI Act and we have GDPR. So now I'm just going to actually dwell more on what GDPR means for us. Now, GDPR versus POPI. GDPR makes provisions for one, the right to be forgotten. So you do have the right to actually get online and ask for your information. I have noticed with so much pleasure that Facebook right now makes provisions for your information to be sent back to you in case you request it. Number 2, it makes provision for the right to access. So now you are able to actually get online and see what information is actually there about you that you can request, whether it's harmful or it's not. But at the end of the day, this actually makes provisions for your digital footprints to have access, to be accessible. And then it refers to right to restrict data and processing. Now, with GDPR, basically, it gives us the opportunity to say, look, I don't want my data to be processed at this stage in time. I did not consent for this. So that does actually help us guide our digital footprint. And number 4, the right to object. We have actually noticed within when we had the general election in South Africa, a whole lot of people received spam messages and calls, and nobody knew where they get the data from. Now, the sad thing about the POPI Act, it doesn't make provisions for that. It doesn't touch on the right to object. So we're just waiting for the POPI Act to be fully enacted into law. Maybe these provisions are going to be made. But for now, we have the GDPR to actually take care of us in that regard. So the difference between POPI and GDPR is it's POPI allows you the right to actually it gives you the right to restrict data processing. So if you do not want your data to be processed, POPI Act does make provisions for that. It actually gives you the right to access as well, but it doesn't give you the right to object. So basically, these are the policy developments that we all need to come together and have dialogues on to talk about them before the president actually signs this bill into action about next year, because as where we're sitting right now, we are not sure when will this be signed into effect. So now, GDPR, a year later, as I said to you before, that GDPR came into effect last year, 2018. So a year later, what have we noticed so far? From a security perspective, I am very happy of the fact that GDPR is playing a huge role within the information protection space. Number 1, we have seen La Liga. La Liga is the biggest sporting it's a sporting fraternity in Spain. What they did is they got fined last year. They were fined £250 because their soccer application basically had a spy mode. So which means that it was violating people's privacy. Again, British Airways as well got fined under the GDPR data breach. Facebook is actually facing 5. So, and Equifax as well got fined about £500 for protection of personal data. So GDPR is working, and at this instance, we are seeing less and less companies neglecting data protection laws. So as soon as the POPI Act comes into effect in this country, we're going to notice a whole lot of compliance, because compliance is actually important. It's an important factor when it comes to security and policy in this country. Examples of compliance: when Liberty got hacked, they did comply. They did notify their consumers that they were hacked, and right now they're actually mitigating the hack so that they know what's going to happen to your information as and when it gets leaked. Unfortunately, it was not leaked. And at this point in time, the biggest data leaks that we had experienced as a country was the deeds office leak. About 2 million data records were actually leaked, and it was the biggest data. But before then, we did not have any provisions which protect our data. It was just luck, if I can say that our information was actually not compromised. So, yeah. I can actually urge everybody to protect themselves online. They need to know how to safeguard their information and their identity to actually cater for the digital space. Thank you.
All right.
Yep.
So we are chatting to Ms. Doreen Mokoena. She is from the ZA Domain Name Authority. But firstly, where exactly is Doreen Mokoena?
Who? Wow, okay.
Your background, what did you study? What made you get more interested into this space? And why did you choose the journey that you're in now, especially the digital forensic sector and such?
Okay, wow. It's worth noting that when I actually came into the space about 15 years ago after my matric, especially my mother. My mother didn't know exactly what I wanted to study, and she disapproved of me studying IT because she thought that I'm going to fix computers and that it was an overrated thing according to her. So after I moved to do a radiography, then I dropped out because it was not working for me. Then I did a diploma in policing. Then I did a national diploma in forensic investigation. I then proceeded with the certifications and the experience. And then I went to the University of Northwest to do forensic law, various certifications there, which gave me the practitioner's designation. I did the forensic law, I did digital forensics, I did forensic accounting, and I also did investigations as well. And I was based at F&B. I was a digital banking specialist. I was at SAP Breweries. I was at the Road Accident Fund, and I found myself at the Domain Name Authority right now.
Okay, but in terms of the digital forensic space in South Africa, how does it look? Do you think we are doing enough as a country? Is there any penetration and the emancipation of women into the sector as such?
Yes, we are doing amazing. I don't know a lot of people who are actually penetrating the space. There's a lady that I hold in high regard. Her name is Veronica Schmitz. She's from Kimberley. She's one of the big digital forensics that we have in Jordan as well. He's my mentor. He's great in the space. So these are the only people that I know. And I know a guy from Micro Focus we were judging the hackathon with. These are the only people that I know that are practicing. But I know that we have a various of people who are into the space. And I know that as soon as we preach it, as soon as we actually create a market for people to jump into it, it's going to be big. So, but for now, it's a bit bleak, but we're getting there.
I see. All right, so let's talk security now.
Yes.
An hour ago, it was reported that one of our beloved babes, she denied some allegations and said that her account was hacked. It does appear that a lot of people are now blaming hackers instead of the government of the devil as such. Because back in the day, you would hear the devil made me do it, but it's mostly now I was hacked.
In terms of that, first of all, we need to clear this thing out. And I'm sure every geek was waiting for me to say this. We need to safeguard and protect the word hack. It's being used haphazardly these days. You know, everyone is being hacked. My grandmother told me that she got hacked by people who called to request her cell phone number. So everybody is getting hacked because it's just being thrown around. But then what is to be hacked? Maybe we need to go back and redefine the word hacking for people to understand. Coming into our beloved babes situation, babes, we need to reach out to her because whatever that she's going through, it's very bad. It's like when a geek cannot pitch their idea at 12 o'clock. Babes is actually going through the same situation as well. But I wouldn't classify that as a hack. She was just being careless, and she's then blaming us for being hacked. If she was really, really hacked, she wouldn't be saying it like this. Yeah.
No, I was in fact listening to a podcast yesterday morning regarding this columnist. This is a tech blogger, tech columnist as such. And this guy got compromised. This data got compromised. And the funny thing is they didn't do it through brute force. They did not try to guess his password and such. What they did is they went through they looked at policies and business rules of large organizations. To like, for an example, they went through Amazon and tried to request and say that I forgot my details, and then they tried to also make sure that they slow down the speed in which you receive your emails on your iCloud and such. So they went through 3 various authentication methods to make sure that they retrieve his Twitter account. And then they managed to get access on his Twitter account and posted stuff. But fortunately, the guy was not angry. He said, "I'm not angry, but I need you to tell me how you did it. So it goes back towards the issue on policy. Do you think that our local startups or local developers are clued up in terms of policy, in terms of business rules? What do we need to do to make sure that we are building up that capacity as such?
Okay, to begin with, first of all, I've been exposed to a whole lot of hackathons and startups and what's not. And speaking to all these gigs, I've noticed that none of them are compliant or know what compliance is. And these policies are just being published and they're being posted there, and nobody has time to go through a policy that they are protected. But then it's every organization's right to make sure that everybody is protected. You know, the three-factor authentication from the Amazon situation, it could have been handled differently. But then they want to use hackers because this was indeed a hack, that these hackers to penetrate.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, at the grand scheme of things, we need, especially the deaf community, they need to arm themselves with the law. They need to know what regulations are. They need to protect themselves. Furthermore, all these developments, all these systems that they are building and all these applications, they need to also know how to govern them, you know. Seeing that we are now going to move fully into IP volume 6. So we need to be fully fledged and ready for it.
Ah, okay.
No,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. No, that is interesting. Yeah, tell us exactly, what is ZADNA? I think a lot of people have been seeing that name. What do you guys exactly do?
ZADNA. Okay, ZADNA, it's a state-owned entity that reports to the Ministry of Telecommunications and Digital Technologies, which is DTPS. We regulate and we manage the .za namespace in South Africa. So we regulate the country code top-level domain name and the generic top-level domain name as well, being the .za, .gov, .net, .schools, and .law, and .edu. So those names are actually managed and regulated by us. How we manage them is we write policies that safeguard the critical infrastructure, because IP numbering is actually a critical internet infrastructure that needs to be protected by all means. So our regulations are actually surrounding and protecting our internet space. Yeah, so that's what that does. We are the regulator.
And why is it important for one to get the .co.za domain?
Vibe going on, but on the real dispute resolution that I'm heading, if somebody goes and registers geekculture.co.za, so that person actually estimates the brand that you have worked so hard to build. You come to us, we actually mediate, but then before we give the name, we need to find a proper balance between the two to prove who exactly does geek. It is a very lengthy and costly exercise. So by knowing these policies, you get to avoid such things. And what I can say for companies, it's best if you safeguard all the names. If you have geekculture.com, you need to have geekculture.co, geekculture.net, geekculture.schools, and going forward. So you need to safeguard your intellectual property.
Okay. No, that is really noted. We do, in fact, own a couple of those. But, you know, a lot of people are verified. Misho is a celebrity, but I don't know on Twitter. But, you know, to be verified, there are certain steps that you need to adhere to. There are processes that you need to follow. Does ZADNA in any way get involved in that process of helping Twitter verify these celebrities like Misho?
Not really, no. And I would really love to verify Micho. He's one of my favorite guys, but unfortunately, ZADNA cannot help you at this instance. But what ZADNA can help you with is if you go out there and somebody spreads fake news about you, I can help you with that. We do have takedown provisions, you know, so that's what we can help you with. ZADNA.
All right. Speaking of fake news, what measures or steps and also processes that you guys have in place in terms of monitoring fake news websites in South Africa?
So, as a domain name authority, we are actually, so our space, it's a multi-stakeholder collaboration. So it compromises civil society, academia, and the research community. There are a whole lot of organizations that help us to manage the space. We have what we call ISPA, the Internet Service Providers Association. There's there's FPB, the Films and Publication Board, and there's also Media Monitoring Africa. So what we do, we actually take charge of the space, of the name itself. Content takedown, it is not our responsibility. We can help you if it's diverse, if it's child pornography.
Okay.
We take it down. We take that content down. We take down the domain name itself. But then, in terms of that, because we also don't want to be accused of censorship, so we need the various structures to come together to deliberate on what type of content needs to be taken down. But ISPA has various resources for takedown policies. And I noticed with so much happiness that Google is also doing that too.
Okay. It's Women's Month now.
Yes.
And congratulations on being named one of the Inspiring 50 in South Africa, and other things that you have been crowned with. Yeah.
Accolades.
Yes. But okay. But in terms of security, especially the women in cyber, how is that space though, and who are some of your favorite women in cyber in South Africa, and why?
Wow. Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure that I was named as South Africa's Inspiring 50 Women. And in terms of my favorite people in the space, number one, I love Fatsai. She is a developer. She's doing amazing things. There's Sina from Geek Culture as well. We look alike. She's also my favorite. She's doing amazing. There's Snetemba, there's Zandile too, and there's Lebu Mudise. Not that I'm monopolizing the whole thing, but these are the people that I work close with, and I appreciate them so much. So they are paving our space. Yeah.
All right, but really though, cybersecurity space, who are the key players there?
Okay, key players in the cybersecurity space. This is a long shot, and I feel well, I would really like to say that first of all, there's a lady called Mitch Mitanga from Google. Mitch is doing amazing things. She is playing, and she holds a primitive role within the space as well. There's Veronica Schmitz. What she does is she does in-depth digital forensics. She practices with NCASE and FTK. She's amazing. And there's a lady named called Binky from Telkom. She is the head of governance. She is doing so much, and as the time progresses by, South Africa is going to be praised with her presence and what she does within the space. And we have a whole lot of organizations that are also playing a huge part. And our minister, Ubezwe Internet as well, she is leading us from the front, and we appreciate that.
Okay. So, wherever we go in the country, we keep getting told that we travel to rural areas, and then we would introduce kids to technologies. One of the things that we always see or hear is that it's more kids to be hackers, the malicious type of hackers. I know China has put in efforts to make sure that they are building what they call a cyber security army as such. What does South Africa have to do to make sure that we are luring in these youngsters to be on the good side of history in terms of the digital footprint?
Well, first of all, the obvious. I think it's within us to differentiate what hacking is. We have three types of hackers, which is the white, gray, and black. You know, people are always saying, I want to be a hacker, but what type of a hacker do you want to be? And apart from that, you don't want to find yourself in the wrong side of law by being the black hacker. You see, what we can do right now is we can teach kids how to actually penetrate systems. We can teach kids how to actually do pen testing and social engineering, but that has to be regulated and managed perfectly, because we don't want to breed a generation of people who are destroying infrastructures. But so far, the country is doing great in terms of digital penetration. There are a whole lot of organizations teaching kids how to code and how to hack, but then it has to be done vigilantly. We don't want to breed an army of hackers who are gonna come back and hack us as well. In as much as we can protect ourselves, but we do have silly gigs.
No, I think we must find a day in the name and shame. How did they get started? Where would you say that this is where you need to go if you want to at least acquire some skills irrespective of the type of a hacker you want to be?
For now, I can say, because I'm not too certain when the government will start with the coding classes and the coding platform, but there are organizations like Ngatuto, Culture, and so forth, you know, that are teaching kids how to code. So first of all, before we can actually bring coding into kids, we need to make sure that the person who's teaching them or the environments they're in does allow for digital literacy, because it makes no sense for us to teach kids coding using a book. You know, that is so back then, and right now we're moving towards the fourth industrial revolution. So we need to make provisions for accessibility, digital inclusion, and we also need to make sure that before we teach kids how to write a code, do they understand what F5 means? So it's a long process, but we're gonna get there.
I see. Okay, you have been to some of the hackathons in South Africa.
Yeah.
You've been on the ground. How are we looking? Because you'll go to conferences and people will say, "Sure, it's bad."
It is.
Yeah, but from your experience, how are we looking, and what must we do, and what must the local geeks do to make sure that they get up there?
Wow. 1 out of 10, I'm gonna give our space 11. We are killing it. South Africa is blessed. We have skill. Our skill set and force, it's amazing. We are doing so well. The only thing that I have noticed that we're lacking on is just on the policy side of things, but on creativity, innovation, and we are just doing it so much. And I'm so glad that some of these solutions that are being developed at hackathons, they do go into production. It shows that SA is really penetrating this digital economy situation, and we are doing amazing. It's just that most people who are biased towards hackathons, they don't know what we're doing, yet they go to these conferences and say that SA is not ready. How are we not ready if you actually don't know what's going on the ground?
I see. You mentioned that in particular, South African geeks don't really know policies as such. What are the three comments for a South African tech startup? Where must they be looking?
Number one, protection.
Okay.
Protect your clients. Protect yourself. Protect your clients' data. Make sure that you have measures in place in terms of a breach. Get your incident response up. Number two, know the Papaya Act. Know how it works. You know, if you have, I saw one geek on Twitter who has a Escalota situation going on there. You know, such things I always preach and I always advocate that you need to know the Consumer Protection Act if you're going to go around building. Sorry, not going around. If you build such applications, Now, you need to also know the health organization standards as well if you're building an application that seems to cater around health and safety. So whatever app that you're building, you need to make sure that you do comply with the specific regulations that surround that specific app as well. So far so good. We're doing well, and I attended the Girl Code Hackathon a few weeks back, and I noticed that people are actually gearing up into compliance. We are there. So by 2020, we won't be preaching compliance and policy anymore. We'll be preaching something else.
Okay, in terms of the Popeye Act, what's the progress there? Do you know what's next?
Well, we are waiting for it to be signed into, we're waiting for the president actually to give his signature. But the gestation around this thing is probably next year, 2020. It will be ready by then.
Okay, let's talk law a little bit.
Yes.
Is there a platform where a local tech startup can go to and then find these resources?
Well, I was about to come to that as there's something brewing on the ground. There's something that I'm passionate about, and it's a startup. It's a platform that I'm building. So soon or later, it's gonna be made available for everybody. So yeah, but for now, there is currently.
Okay, so I suppose there's the government gazette, obviously government websites as such. But I think that the key message there is that everyone needs to be reading, read, understand the environment of operation as such. Yes, and speaking of reading, what are some of your favorite books that you would recommend to inspire female digital forensic practitioners, internet government officers, and such?
I would recommend a book called Click Here to Kill Everyone. I forgot the author. It's been now you're exposing my reading skills. But it's called Click Here to Kill Everyone. It talks about the manifestation of digital forensics, and it talks about net neutrality and all that. And there's a book, I'm gonna sound a bit controversial, but I'm waiting to buy this book. It's by Edward Snowden. It's called The Last Prince. I actually read some of the extracts, and the reason why I'm recommending this book is it talks about data violations and how surveillance was happening, and so and the book that I'm currently reading right now, it's actually not a tech book, but it's actually on the feminism side and how to uphold yourself as a woman within the space. It's called Everybody Needs to Be a Feminist by Chimamanda Ngozi. Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk social media. Because social media, that's basically your digital house. You're building your digital profile. At the end of the day, whether you also, if you're putting yourself out there, the websites that you register, your information access through, who is your Facebook as an open graph. There's Twitter of this day, data can be streamed and such. Do you think we're sharing too much on social media? And what are some of the things that we should be conscious about?
We've stopped sharing about, we've stopped checking in, and we've stopped posting our houses and all of that, but more black cards, and we're sharing where we are and how we're eating and but most people are aware of the risk of putting your stuff out there. It's just that right now it has reduced a bit because of the hacking, but it's just new people who are joining Twitter and Facebook who goes in out to share their cars and what's not. I know such things need to be celebrated, but we need to be sharing stuff, especially about ourselves online.
Okay. And teenagers. they are using the internet now. I did read an article yesterday that WhatsApp want to start restricting the age in terms of WhatsApp usage and such. But what are some of the commandments from their side to make sure that they are being conscious when they are going on these platforms, listening to the Yanos and letting it pop in, the script culture. How do we get that to be conscious and make sure that the risk is
minimalized?
Yeah.
Diana, that one is actually an open-ended question and debate. We can debate it up until next year. I, for one, I have a 14-year-old who's on WhatsApp. Sometimes I do ask him to borrow me his phone so that I can check. And the history of the things that he actually bumps into online are quite scary. And I cannot fully blame kids because some of these things get presented to them. For instance, if you go search for a song and maybe that site is actually infected, it will then give you a pop-up of a porn or something. So these things are available for these kids to see. But how do we then guard against it? It's and at the same time we are preaching accessibility and digital inclusion, but then the same accessibility that we're giving these kids, it's actually worrying because they get exposed to horrible things. Right now you see kids as young as 9 years old twerking. They see these things on their phones and they see them on TV. So as parents, we just need to have these conversations with our kids as to how to bridge that type of information being construed to them. But at this point in time, it's very, very difficult to govern what your child sees on the phone. It is.
Okay. Yeah. I think we are almost out of time, but how do people get a hold of you and how do they interact with you?
Well, you can. I'm available on Twitter at Mokoena D, and on Instagram I'm not available, and on Facebook I used to be available, but I'm going to take down all my stuff because somebody called me a name I barely remembered. And I'm also available on LinkedIn as well as Mokoena Doreen. And you can get me at www.zadna.org.za, and my numbers and everything, it's also there as well. And you can contact Geek Culture. Yes.
Okay. All right. What is your parting message? What a key message to geeks out there?
First of all, I am busy building something big for us. I'm planning on putting all these resources into one place, a go-to place for resources. And we just need to be careful. Let's be innovative. Let's build. Let's harness the economy. And let's just take part in the BRICS challenge as well, and to get a part of the money that is actually due to us, because we need to work hard. And do not hack people. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us on this Winter Deaf Day session.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Local geeks be conscious on things of security and policy. All right. Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.